And welcome to True You Ministries. I'm Stacy Echeverria, host of this podcast. And today I have two very special guests. One you'll know from a podcast and show that we did a while ago, Reese Crane and his beautiful wife, Wendy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
I'm so excited for what we're going to be talking about today. But before we dive into our topic of loving the other woman, let me share with our audience a little bit about both of you. So, Reese and Wendy Crane have been involved in ministry of various kinds throughout their life together. Both were worship leaders in and around the central Pennsylvania area. Both have been used overseas in leading worship, as well as playing in clubs and bringing the light and love of God to dark places. Reese, having overcome his sex addiction, now counsels and coaches men caught in the throes of their own sexual addiction. He also serves the ministry Be Broken as the director of Gateway to Freed Southeast, a weekend intensive for men struggling with unwanted sexual behaviors. Wendy works as a legal assistant for a medical law firm and continues to sing and lead worship, as well as opening doors to see if there are other women out there who need to find a safe place for hope and healing. Again, welcome to the show. I'm really excited about this topic, which no one talks about.
Right.
So I'm really thrilled to be able to have this real conversation with the two of you and to hear a little bit about your own stories. So why don't we dive in? Can you take us back to the beginning? How did your relationship begin and how did it evolve into an affair?
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It all started with you.
It all started with me. It did, yeah. Just put the blame on me right now. This is the one question that we always hate to get in our friendship relationships or people that we meet. So tell us, how did you guys meet?
Right.
Like, you have a couple weeks. So I was leading worship at a fairly large church up in central PA. And I was getting very, very tired. And we had started having a lot of extra services because there had been kind of an outpouring that some people who hear this podcast might remember, and it was called the Toronto Blessing.
Randy Clark?
Randy Clark, right.
Yeah.
And so he came to our church. We actually went up to Toronto as a staff from the church to see what is this, and then we came back and it seemed like it in some way, shape or form had followed us, and people were responding in our worship services like they were up in Toronto, which, had laughter and some other manifestations. I'm extremely Berean. And for those who may not understand that concept, I'm very, very skeptical. I want to search the scriptures to know, if this is something of God.
Yeah.
Now it happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt, okay, there's something to this. But after that, we started adding in so many services. And this was in the 90s. It was not long after I'd taken over leading worship full time at the church. And so many services. And I just felt like I was getting burned out. Everybody was saying, yeah, make sure Reese is there for this meeting. Make sure Reese is there for this conference. Make sure Reese is there, and nobody filling in, type of thing. And so over and over, I just kept getting burned out and burned out. Now I was living a life of performance to begin with.
Right.
And so I know that God used my ministry time, for his glory and calling people closer to worship him. But in my own life, I was really falling apart, and I was still active in my sex addiction, my porn addiction. And, for those of us who have that, it kind of comes in waves. And in my ministry years, it probably wasn't as much, but it definitely was in existence. So that was going on. I was married, and I had one child earlier out of wedlock with another woman, but then I had one child with my wife. And there was just so much going on, and I had no time at home. Affectionately, the wives of all the pastoral staff at the church called themselves the widows, because the men were never home. We were always at church doing things.
Mhm.
So time went on, and I was getting so tired and so burned out. And I'm like, this isn't church. This
Right.
isn't what the gospel is all about. I mean, there's some
Right.
good stuff in there, but
Sure.
overall, like what does God want us to experience? What is he calling us to? And
Mhm.
around that time, this lovely lady here to my right um, came to the church. We had kind of known each other and about each other because she sang
Mhm.
a lot of different church circles that I had sung
Mhm.
and had led worship in different
Yeah.
churches. And my wife was a part of the worship team. And
Okay.
when Wendy showed up at the church, I knew her voice.
Mhm. Mhm.
She had just gone through simultaneously almost two church splits.
Oh, wow.
And she came to our church just looking to heal from all of
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, Wendy's coming here. Let's get her on the worship team. And she goes, well, let me let me heal a little bit. I said, hey, whenever you're ready, you have a place
Mhm.
up here. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
Eventually, she got involved in that, and I was just putting out a CD at the time, of songs that I'd written. And she's an administrative guru, even though she doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily like that side of her life. But she's very good. And she came into the picture, and we would talk about stuff because she was helping me. She had released some CDs, and so I needed some help administratively with getting my CD packet and everything all together. And we just kept talking about, what we wanted out of church, her going through church splits, and then me being tired. It was kind of like misery loves company.
Right.
And we just kept talking. I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. And my wife, who is an amazing woman of God at the time, my first wife,
Mhm.
she had her particular dream about what she wanted she and I to be involved with.
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, that's too lofty for me. That's just not who I am.
Mhm.
She wanted to see us going
Mhm.
around the globe and leading worship in all of these, great stadiums and leading
Mhm.
throngs of people in worship to the Lord Jesus Christ and all that stuff, which is
Mhm.
wonderful. If God wanted me to do that, great.
Yeah.
It wasn't the thing burning in me.
Right.
So, long story longer, she and I, Wendy and I, just began bonding over our emptiness, our spiritual desires and need, which makes it so interesting that you can talk to somebody about deep spiritual things and then it becomes sensual.
Mhm.
And
Right.
and that's that area of the brain, right? They're very close to
Right.
each other. So one thing led to another, and the next thing I know is I'm on the phone calling her, telling her I have feelings for her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that, and that was,
A bomb exploded.
yeah, a bomb
Yeah.
exploded in
Yeah.
her, and because she was very
Yeah.
lonely
Yeah.
and really hadn't dated a lot,
Mhm.
you were kind of pushing 30,
I was.
and
Yeah.
and
I was just waiting
Mhm.
the
Mr.
right,
Right to show
Yeah.
up, sweep me off my feet or something, and
yeah,
did
Right.
all the right things
Mhm.
as a young girl, kept myself pure.
Mhm.
Just kind of a woman in waiting was what I call it.
Mhm.
He just
Mhm.
wasn't coming, and then all of a sudden I get this call out of nowhere. I mean, our relationship was, to me, perfectly innocent. I
Mhm.
I was excited to finally meet someone who we could collaborate with musically. We were on the same page spiritually.
Right.
Coming out of that horrid, twist of the church split,
Yeah.
I was broken, and it just
Mhm.
felt good to land in a place I felt safe
Right.
and connected with. And then
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted to do with my life as well, was be more of a music producer, music arranger.
Mhm.
I enjoy leading worship, but there was this emptiness in me that knew that I had what it takes to be in the studio, right?
Uh-huh.
I,
Right.
I just had no avenue to get there,
Mhm.
where I was. And when she came
Mhm.
along and she was playing, that's one of the first ways that we got together, was we had a National Day of Prayer coming up. She came to church, where the church where I was leading worship. This is before she came and joined, with a song that she had written that we were going to sing at the National Day of Prayer. She was going to sing. She
Mm.
asked me if I could arrange it for her and have the band. Was it the whole band played, wasn't it?
I think they did,
Yeah.
yeah.
So to teach the
Mhm.
worship team that we were going to be
Mhm.
leading worship anyways. So she came in and gave me this song, and we worked on it on the piano, and it was like I was coming to life in that arranger mentality, and she was coming to life that like she had this song, that was
Yeah.
taking on the skin of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she said it was an innocent relationship, it was. And
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking like, oh, I want to
Right.
hook up
Yeah.
with this woman.
Right.
I'm
Right.
coming to life inside me going, oh, this is what I want to do. But
Right.
my wife then was really struggling with that
Mm-hmm.
for her vision and dream for us, right?
Right. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Wendy, this question goes over to you. So, society often paints the other woman as a villain. What's a truth about that experience that people usually miss?
They miss the complexity of what's going on underneath it all. Like,
Right.
it's not just, I didn't come into the relationship looking to do anything, looking
Right.
to find a guy, looking to split up a marriage.
Mhm.
I was just in a relationship, and unbeknownst to me at the time, there was just such a deep cavern of need in me that
Mhm.
I didn't really understand was there, because I was just full heart after God, and He was
Right.
filling that in me. I was
Right.
perfectly content, but there was something that was underlying that, like, I'm lonely.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
until that, like, he disclosed that, and this thing went off in me like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
desirable.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
pretty. I'm
Mhm.
wanted. What is this?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
awakened these emotions and these needs in me that came
Right.
screaming. I mean, they screamed to the forefront where I couldn't hear anything else.
Right.
And you don't
Right.
realize it. So it's not like, it's unfortunate that things we don't understand, we label them as a villain or
Right.
the bad guy.
Right.
Because we don't understand that this young woman was hurting. She was
Mhm.
in need. She was
Right.
broken. She had things in her that were causing her to be a victim,
Mhm.
and
Right.
unfortunately, the perfect storm of events can cause a situation that nobody anticipated.
Right.
And
Mhm.
unless you're surrounded by people who can help you understand those red flags that pop up,
Yeah.
to help guide you in a loving way and not
Mhm.
in in a judgmental way,
Right.
or try to, like, in my instance, when things were coming to the forefront, um, the church was made aware at that time. I'm kind of
Mhm.
jumping ahead a little bit, but
That's okay.
in connection with this mentality, I was brought into the church and basically told that I had to get some demons of lust cast out of me.
Oh
And
boy.
and I'm like, "I'm just hurting here. Like,
Ugh.
I don't know what to do with what I'm feeling, and you're telling me I'm, like, possessed or something?"
Right.
Yeah.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
It was like she showed up at my office in a negligee and said,
I know.
I love and
Gotcha.
power.
Right.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
Yeah.
wasn't
I
anything.
know. I
Introducing
know.
you and,
Yeah.
like, no, I was just broken. So
Yeah.
it's that sort of mentality, unfortunately, that made me further feel like, "Oh, I guess I'm the problem,"
Mm.
you know?
Mm. Mm. Right. Rather, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know what we all had an initial conversation before this show. And what I heard in the story was that both of you were in pain and there was vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that's what was going on. And I find it really interesting that it's always the other woman that is cast as the villain, not realizing that it takes two.
Right.
And I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
There's responsibility for both people, and both people need that healing as well,
Mhm.
right? That's how I look at it. And
Exactly.
I think it's so easy to cast judgment and to put a label, right? Because as humans, that helps us kind of understand it a little bit if we put a label on it, we know what's going on over there. Well, you really don't. You have to peel it back, right? You have to peel the label off and
Yeah.
look a little bit deeper to see what's really going on there, right? Sure, there was the struggle for you, Reese, with the sex addiction. So let's get into that a little bit. When did you first realize you were dealing with sex addiction, and how did it affect your choices and relationships? Because I know in this arena of counseling, and even in my own life, having learned, oh gosh, 40 years later, that my dad struggled with it. I had no idea because there was no name for it back then.
Right.
But in looking back, I'm like, oh, no wonder my parents' marriage was the way that it was. There was a whole bunch of other issues going on there. And the choices that I made in the men that I dated as well, it does impact. So love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, being a Christian, most of my life, having received the Lord at a young age and given my life to Him, or so I thought. um, Finding pornography and the subsequent behaviors that go along with that, it just overtook my life, which it does with
Mhm.
most men, right? It hijacks
Yeah.
the brain, and you're
Yep.
like, you find it at the perfect time, typically when you're coming into puberty and you're becoming a sexual
Right.
creature. And so all of that
Right.
perfect storm loaded up as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But Stacy, I didn't really find out that I was actually in an active addiction until about 3 years after I broke free.
Oh,
Because,
wow.
because everybody in the church, mostly, I hear this because that's kind of where most of my relationship had been, is I've got to
Mhm.
struggle, right?
Right.
So
Right.
the term is struggle.
Yeah.
And when I started doing some research after I had broken free, I'm trying to find out more about this, and I'm realizing that a lot of men have this problem. Um, and I knew that some of my close friends did because we would talk
Mhm.
about it from time to time. Oh, I did this.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Mhm.
had sex with my girlfriend, or that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Mhm. Right.
I didn't really know what to do after I had broken free and kind of had an encounter with Christ that called me out of this,
Yeah.
except to just gather a bunch of people around me and let's just start talking this out, right? I didn't know
Mhm.
there were be brokens out there.
Right.
I didn't know there were 12-step groups for sex addicts. I didn't even, and I wasn't in denial about the addiction. It just never crossed my mind that this
Yeah.
was an addiction. And
Right.
addiction is reserved for heroin addicts and alcoholics.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
Right.
this, I'm designed to be a sexual creature. I just need to get it back online. That's all.
Yeah.
But a few
Yeah.
years after that, I literally looked back on all of it, and I had to admit at that moment I had an addiction. I think it was important
Mhm.
for me to do that, even though I
Mhm.
wasn't actively
Mhm.
involved in it anymore. It was
Mhm.
necessary for me to label it that so that I could
Mhm.
continue the healing that I needed to go through.
Right.
So, but it comes in all forms,
Mhm.
and I always had to be with a girl. I always had to have a girlfriend. Why?
Mhm.
Right? Why?
Right.
But you
Right.
you don't think about that. You're just
Right.
lonely or empty,
Right.
and you think your answer is to have a girl on your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but whenever I would get with a girlfriend, it would immediately have to turn physical.
Mhm. Mhm.
Why?
Right.
Right? I
Right.
mean, all these
Right.
questions, and
Yeah.
like I have to feel this. Well, obviously, part of it is I have to feel the arousal.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
need that feeling. My body's calling me to have that feeling. Uh,
Yeah.
so, I call what I had a sex addiction and a porn addiction because when I
Mhm.
didn't have one, I'd go to the other.
Sure.
But I think most porn and sex addicts have a love addiction,
Right.
and there's a
Yeah.
lack of
Yeah.
emotional
Right. Yeah.
clarity. There's
Yeah.
that emotional neglect that we grow up with, and
Right.
so
The attachment.
yeah,
The lack of the secure attachment.
right.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
I was somewhere in the avoidant,
Yeah.
dismissive, probably going
Right.
towards preoccupied and disorganized, the
Right.
lingo that we put on that,
Right.
just because I had to be solely responsible for my emotional welfare,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
there's a few things that you can early on trust mom and dad for when it comes to emotional things, but then you realize they're not meeting the need at all.
Right.
They're not mentoring me well. They're not guiding me
Right.
well. So that's kind of, in layman's terms, that's that you either in the secure attachment, you have the secure attachment, but all the way on the other side is the sexual
Right.
fulfillment that
Yeah.
end up going towards, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that becomes the answer to all of your loneliness. That becomes the answer to all of your deep feelings of regret in life. You just
Yeah.
equate sex with an answer to problems.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's, and as long as I'm feeling that, I'm good. As long as I have a woman on my shoulder,
Yeah.
I'm good. As long as
Right.
it's physical, I'm good. And it just continued to blossom and blossom and blossom. And the reason I call my side of this ministry the silent addiction
Mm-hmm.
is because my first wife had no clue.
Mm.
In fact, the first symptom of my addiction was our affair.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
couple of porn DVDs that I accidentally left on by her computer.
Mm. Oh, accidentally.
Well, yeah, it was, yeah, for me, it was an accident. For God,
Yeah.
definitely His will.
Right.
Because I
Right.
I got an email from my ex-wife, at the time we were married. She goes, I took those DVDs back for you. And I was like, "Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
seriously? I left
Yeah.
them there?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a good track coverer. What's the deal?"
Right? Maybe
So
subconsciously you did wanna be found out, and you wanted to have that whole burden lifted already, to
I
have
did.
the truth come out, right?
I hated it. I hated
Yeah.
living that way. But yeah,
Yeah.
but when
Yeah.
you ask about the addiction, that didn't come
Yeah.
until a few years later. And what was
Right.
interesting is we got married in 2005. I had my break free at 2011,
Wow.
but we were together since about 2000, at the end of 2000, 2001. So 10 years of our life together, I was
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
addiction, and she
Yeah.
wasn't privy to it.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
here's the thing
wow.
that you know about Stacy, and I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, maybe experienced it, is
Mhm.
that the wife feels the dirt. They just don't know what to call
Yes.
it.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I've had so many of the betrayed spouses tell me, "The Holy Spirit put on my heart to ask this question.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was asking this question." Well, I knew why the Holy Spirit was wanting her to ask the question,
Yeah.
because he wanted the truth to come out. He didn't want, anything hiding in the darkness any longer, and it's really something, and I tell the wives too, you when you go into marriage, you there's so much that you don't know, right? And you find out later what you don't know, but you also don't know to ask these questions. Why
Right.
would you?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when I do premarital counseling, and even people that want to have counseling with me, oh, that's on the intake form.
Right. Yeah.
Do you struggle with, not, it is not struggle with, but sex addiction, pornography, any escalated behaviors as well, because especially with premarital counseling, if we don't address it
Yeah.
before they get married,
Right.
I have seen what it's done to marriages. Some people make it, thank God, and others, because one spouse may not be wanting to do the work. It's just really sad. And I think about, what God created, the enemy has perverted.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
And it really just impacts not just the person that has the addiction, but if there's a spouse, and then also families, the kids as well.
Yeah.
It's just, it's different in the day that we were growing up. It wasn't as easily accessible as it is now.
Oh, my goodness. No.
And I think about what's going, I don't want to get on this tangent, but I think about what they're trying to shove onto the kids in schools. And
Yeah.
and it's just like, you're creating addicts at age 5.
Right.
Is that what you really want to be doing here?
Right.
It's just heartbreaking. But anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And Wendy, this question is to you. How did Reese's addiction impact your identity, if it did, and sense of worth during and after the affair?
Mhm.
Well, like he said, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I thought so at the beginning, and in the beginning few years of our marriage, the issues that I was having and feeling, I thought was me because of
Mhm.
how we got together.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
thought I was just carrying the shame of our affair, and it was just a residual thing that I was coping with. So for years, I just dealt with it, and it but it was always there. Something just wasn't right. We would have an intimate moment even after marriage and after we've both come clean with God. We were both walking with the Lord again by that time, and I'd still feel dirty.
Right.
And I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Mm.
So, and he remembers the moment clearly, but I honestly don't remember what spurred my question.
I don't
Do
know.
you remember what?
We were driving down the road,
Yeah.
it's one of those, where were you when Kennedy was shot,
remember.
type moments, right?
Yeah.
And although I was not even a twinkle in my daddy's eye for that particular,
I was in my mother's womb at the time.
oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, I was.
So then you remember it well. So we're driving down the road. I guess we're talking about stuff that I'm learning or I'm getting involved with,
I
and
think that's what it was. You were just, because you were starting to come out, become free, help others.
yeah.
And the conversation veered toward the addiction.
And then she just takes a moment of
it just hit me.
It just hit her.
So were you still watching porn when we were married, like when we got together? And I guess in his, he just dropped.
And I wasn't going to lie about it, but it was one of those issues that you want to take to your grave, right?
Yeah.
I don't really want to have this be part of it anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, I didn't break free until 2011. And there were lots of things I blamed on her nephew.
Oh.
Because finding titles of porn sites.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Are the kids I can't believe the kids are doing, and I'm just brushing it off. Because you know how computers are. They keep all of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so we're gonna have to talk with them, that type of thing.
I think that given our history, I would have gone, oh, I don't believe that. I think that, it's you, or you've obviously been clueless.
But if anything came up on the computer and she was nearby, I would just act so angry. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this stuff. Oh, how is this getting in our computer? I hate this, and just throw her off the scent. But when she asked me and I said yes, what started was almost a 10-year retro betrayal trauma experience for her.
Sure.
Right? Because she already has the trauma of being the other woman.
Right.
We're married, so now she has the trauma of feeling like she's the woman that broke up a marriage.
Right.
This isn't just a dating triangle, right? This is a marriage thing.
Right.
And we have been very actively engaging in sexuality together. And it all just kind of came to a head at that moment. And I said, yes, I was, that I did break free in 2011. Probably somewhere around 2014, I'm thinking, something like that, a few years later. And I can let her explain it, but what she started to enter into was a very, very dark time, and it affected our relationship. There's so many points where she would get stressed out about something else, because this was already up at this top level. Times I didn't think we were going to end up making it marital, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything started to make sense then, right? You're like, oh, okay. So that's why I was feeling this during this time. And that's why I would walk away and immediately go to the bathroom and cry, because I felt like I was some object of his, fantasies. Then you start questioning, well, is our marriage even real? Is it even based on anything foundational?
Right.
So you start questioning and going to the extremes. And so, it was a really dark time, and denial too. I'm like, or I just don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Enough stuff to deal with. I don't want to deal with this on top of everything.
Yeah.
So it took me quite a long time to reckon with all of it.
Right. Yeah. And it's just layers and layers of trauma. All kinds of, for both of you.
Right.
I mean, it's just incredible. And I know with, some of the betrayed spouses, some of them, married 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I've had those consultations, and they're finding out for the first time.
Yeah.
And the shock of it all. And it's just like, who are you? Who did I marry? They don't know, they don't recognize the man that's standing next to them or in the bed with them, right? It's like, who
Right.
are you? And it's just so traumatic. The thing too, even in that, no one's the villain, you
Right.
know? I mean, you're victims of what Satan does, and it's
Right.
just
Right.
it's just all consuming. And yet, there's always that path forward. And I love the redemptive piece of it all. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that soon. I can't wait, because I love that, because there's no point, in going through it and there's no hope at the end of it. There's always hope at the end of it if you reach for it. So Wendy, this question's back to you. What was your wake up moment that led you to begin seeking healing in this?
Well, gosh, I don't know that there was like this brilliant moment, because I tend to be very stubborn. Family
Okay.
trait. So I will hold on with, I just grit my teeth and I will hold on to it and just not let something go. So it was, years and years. I think the Father was working in me, obviously, as I would allow it through the years.
Mhm.
And that was
Mhm.
the beginning. So I had to start looking honestly at some things and honestly at myself.
Right.
But I want to say it had to have been a decade
Mhm.
until I was ready to
Mhm.
and I think probably honestly when the Lord was started to work in me to write the book,
Mhm.
it wasn't until then, I think, that I fully was like, okay, I'm letting go. Like we had a dog that we used to play when she was younger with that chew toy, and boy, she would just hold on to that chew toy and not let it go. I finally opened my clenched jaw and was like,
Mm.
go ahead,
Yeah.
you take it now. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you
That's
would,
surrender.
yeah, surrender. And it's a
Mhm.
timetable that's different for everyone, right?
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
The Father is so patient
Yeah.
and long suffering and gracious with us.
Yeah.
He wasn't gonna take me and be like, okay, now now get over it.
Right.
Come on, get over it.
Right.
Get over those emotions you feel, because I need to use you, and come on, let's.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what religion does to us. It's like,
Yeah.
fix it
Right.
Yeah.
and move on. But
Yeah.
it took me.
Yeah.
I am a tender soul, and I'm
Yeah.
deeply like affected by things. So it took
Yeah. Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you're right. Everyone's different. Everyone's on a different timetable. And there was a moment in a training that I took a few years ago that really helped me approach people that seem to be resistant to the healing process, not ready for it. They're digging their heels in, or they're clenching their jaw, right? Or they're like a dog with a bone. And that is capacity. Do they have the capacity to even consider it? Do they
Right.
have the capacity to approach it?
Mhm.
Right. And so in the 10 years, maybe the Lord was allowing you to build capacity to then deal with it, to
Yeah.
then move into it.
And
Right.
I could
And
maybe come to and reckon and come to peace with a situation to some extent. But the
right.
problem I had was with me.
Right.
I hold such high standards of myself
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I could not make peace with the fact that I did this. Like
Mm,
I had an affair, something I said I
right.
would never do. And
Right.
I did. I found myself doing things and acting like,
Right.
doing things I
Right.
don't want to do.
Right.
So,
Right.
so forgiving myself was that key
Mm-hmm.
element that I
Mm-hmm.
struggled with, and I couldn't until the very end. That
Yeah.
last piece that the Father's like, you need to let go for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm also hearing too in that, and this was a question I was going to ask, but I think you already answered it. And that was stepping out of the shame that you were in and into the freedom and the healing that the Lord had for you and has for you. Because we're still on that healing journey, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think shame is really the most, when I see it with the men that have the addiction and they're swirling in the shame, and I have to remind them that what you have done is not who you are, but
Mhm.
who you are is rooted firmly in who Christ says that you are and who, right? Because that never ever changes. Right.
Right.
So equating identity with behavior, you're going to be in trouble all the time. You're
Yeah.
never going to get out of it. And that's where the enemy wants to keep you, right? So then the isolation sets in, because that's where we know relapse happens, is in that isolation. But with the Lord, it's in these healing relationships that we can find that freedom too.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know,
Yes.
Yeah.
oh goodness.
She would get mad at me because I would tell her, you have a voice in this area.
Right.
And she's very introverted, you
Mm-hmm.
know. When
Yeah.
it's time for her birthday to come around, she's like, don't do anything, right? So
I don't want any
like
attention. I don't want.
she'll go somewhere by herself and have the best birthday extravaganza she could possibly have, just sitting there
Right.
looking at ways to design our house.
Just drinking a cup.
Drinking a cup of coffee, having a bagel with cream
That's a
cheese.
wonderful.
So, but I don't know if God used me or if I was stubborn or whatever, but I see so much in her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she has so much to offer, and I've seen her interact with different people, and man, she has a voice, and
Yeah.
she's an incredible singer. I mean, this little girl, and when she gets up singing, everybody comes up and kind of looks at her, where'd that voice come from? And
That's
but
awesome.
she has an incredible singing voice, but she also has an incredible mercy voice.
Mm.
She's the epitome of that verse: a gentle answer turns away wrath.
Yeah.
Like when I get all crazy and going
Right.
nuts, and she's like, "What's the matter?" You know? Like, okay. Like the Hulk coming back down to Bruce Banner. Right?
That's really funny. We need someone like that in our lives, right? So Reese, you and I are very much wired the same way.
Right.
And my husband Robert is wired like you, Wendy. So we need those calming individuals who brings us back down into reality and
Yeah.
has
And
a
for a
different
while you hate 'em.
perspective.
Yeah.
I
But
know with my husband where I'd be like, I'm like, can you believe this and this and this and this? And he's just like, well, what about, and I'm going, oh, Mr. Silver Lining, and that used to,
yeah.
and that used to annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what? He's so wonderful that he's able to see the good in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, we need that. We need that because it's so easy to just focus on all on the yuck. And he's like, well, and I'm going, oh, here we go, Mr. Silver Lining,
Yeah.
but now it's in a loving way. It's like, yeah, you're right.
Right.
It's funny, her healing journey. Like when she wrote this book, she was initially going to write one of those books that you turn around and it's upside down. It's a 2-part book with my ex-wife. They were going to actually write a book together.
Right.
Because God has, that's another story for another time, but God has brought this redemption in between my ex-wife and then now she's remarried to an incredible man of God, and a wonderful stepfather to my children. And so we thought, is there a future in these 4 stories that we have together, Yeah. So she started wanting to work on that as more of an autobiographical concept, right? I'm going to write like the real story of what's been going on. And then she found that she was always struggling in that. And
well, I finished it.
You did finish it. That's
but
right.
It just felt flat.
Yeah.
Like,
it needed something else.
Yeah. It was just something wasn't right about it. So I did it early on, and it didn't take me long at all. And I just sat it down probably for another 8 years or so.
Wow. Well, let's get into talking about your book, The Scandal of Virginia Gray, right? Yes. Oh, how pretty. I love it.
You like that?
So how did writing the book help you process your own journey?
So we've been this high up in house renovations, right? So that's been the focus of my life for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And in the midst of it, we had a bit of a lull because we're doing it all on our own, and we needed to sort of accumulate some funds before we could start a next project. So I had a little bit of downtime, and the Lord just used that opportunity to, he like, hey, pick that up again. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I would just spend evenings just kind of, and I thought, let me just write this from an outside perspective. Let me do it as a fiction.
Yeah.
So I started to do that and kind of put myself in this character called Virginia Gray. My middle name is Virginia, so that's where Virginia came from. And I started to just kind of explore what would it be like? What were her emotions as she went through this? And so it was very therapeutic, almost like journal writing or something, just sort of pouring out my emotions of the affair in her story. And it just flowed like every night for 4 or 5 hours. I would just sit in bed with my laptop and write until 2 a.m, just sort of, and it was just coming, And each one, it was like this onion skin layer that the Lord was peeling off of my soul and helping me to go through those deeper emotions that were still associated and connected with everything.
Right.
So it was completely healing. I mean, there are still things that now, if something might push my button and I'm still dealing with it,
Sure.
I'm kind of person where the past is the past. I prefer not to dredge up my trash for the world to see, and he's like, hey, everybody, look what I did.
It's like hanging out on the line outside in the backyard, right?
Right. But you don't have to tell all the grocery store clerks at the cashier that you were a sex addict and God set you free.
They don't need to know the story, okay? Let's just skim over it here. But I'm more like, let's not tell everyone. So it was hard for me to be so vulnerable in writing it and really sing it for people to read and not knowing how they would react or see me.
Well, tell her what God said to you, and you're like, you don't have to write the book.
Oh, yeah. So I was struggling with this whole concept and releasing it for others and the ministry aspect of the other woman. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. It's just that plain and simple. God, why would you make me do something I don't want to do? And I'm in the bathroom and I'm looking at myself in the mirror in tears. And he's like, you don't have to do it. I'm not making you do it. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I would just ask you to reconsider, because I kind of want to use your story to help others.
Yeah.
It was as gentle, as even more gentle than that. It was like, and then immediately I'm like, I don't have to. But then I wanted to. It's like, I want to do it for you.
Pretty
now,
sly there,
right?
God.
I know. Because of how gentle the moment was. It's just, he doesn't force us. But he wants to. He wants to use it for his glory and for his purpose.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The power of God.
Right.
Yeah. And I also think too, it is an opportunity, right? It is an opportunity for you to have your pain used for someone else's gain and healing. Otherwise, what are we doing all of this for? And I think too, not to get down on the institution of church, but we don't have these conversations.
Right.
We don't even have the sex addiction conversation. Your worship leader's struggling. Your pastor might be struggling. Your youth leader might be struggling. And 3 people in the row that you're sitting in might be struggling. I mean, it's the statistics are off the charts on that. The Barna report recently, I mean, it's just insane. That really is the pandemic or the epidemic, really.
Agreed.
And we need to be honest about what sin we're dealing with and call it out. Right. And be brave enough, to talk about these things. And, how can I know I've been in my own healing journey for the last 18 years. And one of the most beautiful things that the Lord has done for me is allowing me to see other people through his eyes and have compassion for their for what they're dealing with, what the challenges, they may be struggling with. And because it's so quick, again, it's so quick for us to just put a label on them. Oh, they're an alcoholic, and they're a drug addict, or and it's just like, so what is your issue over here? I'm thinking judgment might be an issue for you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, perhaps. Right.
It's just, he who is without sin, and so how can we be gentler and kinder and compassionate with one another? Because for me, that's the environment where I end up thriving the most, where I ended up receiving the most healing, was where I was accepted even in my garbage.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, I've been reading through your book. I have a lot of screen fatigue, but I have to tell you, I'm loving your book. You're such a good writer, and it just flows so beautifully. And I know at the end of the show, I know that you have an offer for that, and I want the audience to know about that. But I know that you've gone beyond the book, that you have a ministry called Other Women Ministries. And so, how do you are you finding women who are in the same situation that you were in years ago? How do those women find you? How do you find them? Just share a little bit about that, Wendy.
Well, it's extremely embryonic right now. So, and it's a very tough road to hoe. Like, it's crickets when you bring the subject up, right?
Really? Okay.
People I think are afraid to either reach out. Maybe they're so shrouded in that shame, or even from people to get the word out. Like you said, it's kind of an unmentionable. Nobody wants to talk about the other woman, and it's like almost like a cuss word or something. You're like, what? Why can't we say it? It's okay, to talk about.
They're very hard to find.
Yeah.
Extremely hard to find.
And I've had some conversations with others who have come to light and been like, oh, I didn't realize that you dealt with that as well, and but I find that it's like any new thing, it's just a really tough ground. Because it's so entrenched in people's psyche that they were the bad guys. And forgetting that, well, we're really not. We did something bad, sure.
Right.
And I'll be the first to admit my choices and taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, like you said, that's not our identity, though.
Correct.
We're not the bad guys here, people.
Right.
So it's something that's so needed, and I'm just praying that people can find.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's just like a site that you can go to, get some encouragement, reach out to me, talk, but just to know you're not alone in the struggle. I felt completely isolated. Who could I talk to about this?
No one. No.
Everyone either hated me because they thought I destroyed this marriage, or they thought, well, I don't know, something wrong. Did I have like leprosy or something? Was I contagious? Why don't people want to reach out in that loving way? So I did feel very extremely isolated. Yeah. And I couldn't talk to God about it. Gosh, I sinned against him. So you have nobody.
Right.
Right.
So I want to be a safe place, even if it's just to hear her story. Yeah. And to validate the fact that she is not soiled. She is not damaged goods. She is not a evil woman. Right. Evil woman. She's
I know.
She's not.
Yeah.
Beloved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost as if this is the unpardonable sin.
Right.
And it isn't.
Right.
And it isn't. I mean, hey, look at David. One of my favorites. I mean, Samson and David and Solomon, they all had lust issues.
Right.
David went even further. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. That's the problem number one right there. He wasn't where he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then there's Bathsheba on the rooftop bathing naked. I'm going, what in the world is she doing on the rooftop where everyone can see her?
Right.
I'm like,
Right
what?
near the king's palace.
I know, right?
Right. I'm like, excuse me, she's complicit in this too. But, and then it's like, oh, well, they have sex and she gets pregnant and David's wheels goes on and we know the story. And it's like, he's a murderer as well.
Right.
And yet he's considered a man after God's own heart.
Plus, he's got 10 concubines. You read the story, you're like, what? I thought we were just doing the Bathsheba thing. What's it like? Okay, I get Abigail, I get McCall, I get all that kind of stuff. Okay, so they had a few wives. Wait, too?
I know. Yeah. Is it not enough? Kind of thing. And then Solomon, well, he just 900.
Well, right? He grows up in that environment.
Exactly.
Dad, hook it up.
Right.
And so it's the same thing that happens in our world today. Somebody fights for something over here, or agrees with something in this generation. The next generation comes along, take it as solid gospel. Exactly. And then Solomon goes like, well, watch this. I can do 1,000.
Right.
Holy,
not a competition, buddy.
Bible, right?
I know. And all I see in that are hurt, wounded people.
Yeah.
Coping in so many unhealthy ways, right?
Gosh,
right, because there's something that's just missing. And really, the truth is there is a God space in our hearts that's meant for him, and yet we're looking for love in all the wrong places and with all the wrong people. And that was me, because I did not have a secure attachment growing up. My parents were hurt, broken people, limited tools in the toolkit, angry rageaholics. That's how I coped. But I didn't get what I needed, from my own parents. And I don't blame them for it. It brought me to where I'm at today, coming to know the Lord. My God, I should have been dead a million times. But the Lord had another plan for me.
Yeah.
And, when we share even, what our sin was, it isn't to, boast about it. Right. To me, it's not worth telling the story if there isn't a redemptive aspect to it, if there isn't hope for someone.
Right.
And that's what I would share with her. I'd say, she would look at me and go, I don't know how you can tell the story. I don't know how you can live the way you're living now in that sense of freedom that you have. And I said, because my pain is helping somebody else. Yeah. And I believe that your pain can too. And
absolutely,
this is the one area where she kind of meets her mate in the stubbornness. Because
I don't want
to. And it's not, she's not a counselor, right?
No, I'm not.
And it's not, but it's so it's not putting her in the position of going, this is going to be a full-time job. I mean, if God wants it that way, then he'll make the flow happen. It'll be beautiful. But what's inside of her?
Safe for people.
Yeah, she wants a safe haven for people, and she wants to give the other woman a voice. Yeah, and let them come out of the shadows.
Right.
And some of them are broken, or they've gone on to get married to somebody else, but some of them are still broken in the marriage, that they have now with the man, like we have.
Right.
But they're still broken as the second wife, or whatever, and they can't overcome that.
Right. And I understand the dark places you can get in that moment.
Yeah.
And the other topic that is almost even more dear to my heart is just the suicidal ideation, because I had attempted a few times, and it's real.
Yeah.
And someone even who's walking with the Lord, I was like, felt like I was like that with, my first love. And even that can break and separate for a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that maybe the Lord even allowed some of this to happen, because I had this real prideful kind of mentality that I'm a virgin and look at me. I can do it. Why can't you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came toppling to the ground.
Yeah.
So just that, there are just so many things that I can understand that maybe others that haven't walked through it can understand to the same extent. So
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that we have an opportunity. I like being able to bring topics onto the show that others are not talking about.
Mhm.
And Reese and I have developed a relationship over the years. And when he told me about you, Wendy, I was like, yes, let's meet. And I'm really glad that we're able to have this conversation. If it helps one woman break free, it's worth it.
Mhm.
There's the enemy wants nothing more than for us to be separated from the Lord, to not know who we are in Him, and to not know whose we are, and to continue walking the road alone.
Right.
And it's not what the Lord wants for us. It's not what He meant for us. And so I know that there are going to be people in my audience that are listening and they're not going to know what to do. And so, there's a way to get help. And reach out, to Wendy at otherwomanministries.com, or email her at wendy@otherwomanministries.com. You've heard her on the show today. I mean, Wendy, you have such a tender heart, and just I can tell that there's such a deep desire to help women break free.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, Reese, always a pleasure, seeing you, talking with you. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about, both of your stories as well. And again, being able to see, the Lord in that. And, for those of you that want to get Wendy's book, share with us, Wendy, how they can, go about getting your book. I know you have an offer, for those that are listening.
I'll let him.
Yeah. Well, the offer is that, after this goes public,
Yeah.
and whenever this is played, the first 5 people that email Wendy at otherwomanministries.com will get a free Spotify download for the audiobook.
Nice.
And even if you don't have Spotify, that's okay. You have to at least.
There are other platforms that you can get it from, but yeah, I mean, you can get a free Spotify account. You don't have to be a paid
Right.
subscriber. It's
Right.
just that you
Right.
may have to deal with some advertisements, but it's available.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 5 people that we get an email from, will we'll get that download link and be able to listen to it read by yours truly.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun for her too.
Yeah.
She was in this room here. She had, couch cushions and mattresses and everything just to make it like a studio, And,
Soundproofing.
yeah, that's what she was. I'd walk in here and it looked like she was building a fort with her friends,
Well, you use what's
Yeah.
at your disposal, right?
Right. But it sounds really good. And once she uploaded it, I think it might have gone through some other processing, but sounds really, really good online. And then
Mhm.
this book right here, The Scandal of
Mhm.
Virginia Gray, and she did
Mhm.
the artwork on the front of it as well. She
Oh, beautiful.
got the graphic stuff.
Nice.
You can go to Amazon. Okay, so it's on there. All you have to do is look up The Scandal of Virginia Gray.
Mhm.
By the time you're halfway typing it through, it shows up. And so you can
Good.
do that. Now you can order it from us, but we have a limited supply
Okay.
of books right now, which we can order more. And we're hoping to maybe go to some conferences and
Mhm.
take this with us and sell to some people. But
If they're a
Right.
Barnes person, they can
Yeah.
at Barnes and Noble, yeah, that's right. Barnes and
Mm.
Noble, it's there. We she
Nice.
went through a platform that they were able to put it up in different areas.
Oh, fantastic.
If you're a Barnes and Noble freak, you can go to B&N, and then Amazon carries.
Mhm.
Are there any other places
Mhm.
that the
maybe,
audiobook is? Is it on Kindle?
Oh, the audiobook. Yeah, there's a couple different platforms, but I think you
Spotify.
just have to do a search.
Yeah, you can do a
Yeah.
search and look for audiobook with the same name
Yeah.
of the book.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. Not just about getting the free
Yeah,
download,
just
Right.
but
Right.
if you're struggling in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form, feeling like
Yeah.
the other woman and you can't break
Yeah.
it, or you have broken it
yeah, and you
and
want to share your
and you want to
story
share
as
your
well.
story, we'd love
Yeah.
to hear it.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. No, that's great. Yeah. And I'll have the links in my show notes, so you don't have to remember it. I'll just put it in my show notes. You can click on the link. I'll find the book on Amazon as well, and I'll have that link available also. Before we wrap up, Is there anything, is there a word of encouragement that either of you would like to share? I know too, Reese, you do counsel men that have the sex addiction piece. Can they reach out to you as well?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
They can get a hold of me at thesilentaddiction.com.
Okay.
I'm too cheap to have an email address with my same name.
Okay.
But you can get a hold of me at Reese Crane, Reese with an S,
Mhm.
Reese Crane at gmail.com, all one word.
Okay.
So there is a site out there, Silent Addiction, that was for
Mhm.
something else. So I put the article in front of it,
Okay.
thesilentaddiction.com. And
Yeah.
you can find me there as well. And of
Yeah.
course, we have the Gateway to Freedom
Mhm.
weekend intensives that we do down here between San Antonio area and actually they're going to Austin now.
Oh, nice.
So they're going to be in Austin, and then in the Southeast, the one that I direct in the Southeast, that's part of the whole Be Broken Ministries
Mhm.
weekend intensives. They can find out about that on bebroken.org.
Okay.
And if they want to sign up and come out to an intensive, it's a really, really great start for those that are struggling with those behaviors.
Excellent. That's great. I'll have all the links in the show notes as well. So thank God that there's so many resources available for people these days. There wasn't when I was growing up.
Right.
No one even knew that sex addiction was actually an addiction. It
Right.
finally made it into the DSM.
Right.
So,
But there's still a camp out there that won't accept it. Right.
that's true.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely, absolutely true. And for those of you that have been watching my show for a while now, if you are in this space right now where you're in a place where it feels dark, you don't know what to do, and you've heard us talk about the Lord and how he just redeems situations and people, that you don't have to do this by yourself, that he uses people, obviously, like Wendy and Reese and myself, to be vessels of healing and hope to you. But you really need Jesus.
mhm.
And so today is the day to say yes. I don't know when Jesus is coming back, but it certainly feels like it might be tomorrow. But I'm hoping it's today.
It
But if
really,
it isn't today or tomorrow, you have an opportunity to say yes to him. And the way that he you know, cared for Wendy and the way that he talked with her. Like, he's like, well, you don't have to write the book. And then started working in her heart, right?
mhm.
He will not beat you over the head, but he does want, everyone to come to know him. Why? So that you won't be apart from him.
Mhm.
So if you have any questions about saying yes to Jesus and what does that look like? And then, well, what happens next? Reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can reach me at my website at trueyouministries.com. You can call me at 626-461-3344 or email me at info@trueyouministries.com. Or I do have a free consultation. You don't have to talk to me about counseling, but if you do want to know what does it mean to walk with Jesus, just go to my website, click on that free 20-minute consultation, schedule some time with me, and I'm happy to share with you what he's done in my life and what he can do in yours. So again, Wendy and Reese, thank you so much for being on here.
It was an honor.
I
Thank
pray.
you.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I pray that the Lord will bless both of you in your ministries. And for those of you at home watching and listening, I pray that the Lord will bless you today. Thank you all.